At their golden anniversary, my brother stood up and made an announcement like it was a done deal. "We all agreed," he said. "Jake gets the memories, I get the $1.9 million lake house." My mom actually clapped. I lifted my glass, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "Congratulations. I'll just take what's mine." The next morning, I walked through that house and gathered up every single thing I'd paid for, every couch, every light fixture, the custom flooring. All of it. There was just one item left behind. A box. Sitting quietly inside. See that anniversary dinner? I paid for the whole thing. The venue, the food, the music, every last detail. And right in the middle of it, with the guests listening in, my brother raised his glass again and said, loud and proud, "We all agreed, Jake takes the memories, I'm taking the lake house." Mom applauded. Dad gave that proud little smile of his. My aunt chimed in, "Well, that's only fair." Not a single person looked my way. I didn't interrupt. Didn't ask who this "we all's." I just nodded, raised my glass, and said with a calm, steady voice, "Congrats. I'll just take what's mine." Then I smiled. Not bitter, not loud, just like someone who had already made up his mind. Because I had. I didn't show up to cause a scene. I went out of obligation. Maybe even habit. A part of me, honestly, still hoped. I had booked the whole event myself, paid $4,300 for catering, hired the band in advance because Dad claimed money was tight that month, even bought a custom-made cake with their wedding date written in gold. And yet, during all those toasts, all those speeches, no one even mentioned me. Not as a son. Not as part of the family. I was more like the foundation holding the place up, seen, but not acknowledged. I sat through it all. The speeches. The jokes. My brother laughing as he said he never even wanted the lake house. No wife, no kids, what would he do with it? Everyone laughed along like it was harmless fun. Even Grandpa Joe couldn't meet my eyes. I didn't laugh. I took another bite of that overpriced filet, dabbed my mouth with a napkin, and stayed silent. Because in that moment, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger. Wasn't even sadness. It was a kind of stillness. Cold and clear. Like gears locking into place after years of just being tolerated instead of truly seen. They didn't want me there for who I was. They wanted what I could offer. What I could cover. What I could fix. So I left early. Quietly. No big exit. Just a polite smile, a nod to the waiter, and a quick message to my assistant. Tomorrow, start listing every single item I've funded in that house. They wouldn't see it coming. Not from me. I was always the dependable one. The problem solver. The open wallet. The invisible man who kept the lights on. But that night I stopped being a ghost. I started taking inventory. I didn't lose sleep because I was hurt. That pain had dried up years ago. I stayed up because I was finally connecting the dots, not individual moments, but long-standing patterns. The lake house wasn't the first time they carved the world into what I could give and what they felt entitled to take. I remembered paying for my sister's wedding reception, $9,800. When I asked her why she hadn't even told me, she just laughed and said, "Well, you don't have a family, might as well make yourself useful." I thought about that one Christmas when I drove 6 hours to be there, only to find out they'd given my seat to the neighbor. "She's alone this year," Mom said. "You'll be fine in the kitchen." The kitchen. I left that night without a word. No scene, no complaint. Just slipped out. And later, my sister texted me, "Wow. Can't handle not being the center of attention?" Right then, I opened my banking app. Froze the mortgage payments I'd been covering. Shut down the streaming accounts. Canceled the shared Prime membership. Gone. And at 9:04 p.m. that same evening, the message came through. A group text from the family. Brutal. "We talked about it. You've always been a failure. You ruin every holiday. Every family event. We don't need you anymore." That was their idea of closure. No wonder the lake house stunt felt like the final punchline. To them, I was never a son. I was a wallet. A fixer. A handyman. An emotional sponge. I even paid for the landscaping that made that fancy anniversary party possible, $12,400. And I wasn't even invited until the week of. When I asked my aunt about it, she shrugged and said, "It's just immediate family. Hope you understand." When I stopped the payments, Dad messaged me, "Don't be dramatic." That was the phrase they always fell back on, wasn't it? Don't be dramatic. Like years of quiet service could instantly be spun as tantrums the moment I stopped saying yes. I remembered canceling my sister's wedding, not out of spite, but because she blew through my money like she was owed it. Like I was just a resource. A tool. Something to be used. They always dressed it up as love. As if I was helping. As if they cared. But really? What they meant was that I was convenient. I didn't make noise. I didn't say no. And I didn't. For a long time. Because I wanted them to recognize me. I figured if I gave enough, helped enough, sacrificed enough, eventually they'd stop seeing me as broken and start seeing me as family. But that moment never came. All they ever saw was someone useful. I'd write a check, they'd cheer. I'd hand over money, they'd divvy it up without a word. I'd show up, and they'd tear me down for laughs. Every dinner. Every holiday. Every so-called milestone. I paid for their theater. The perfect family illusion, built on the back of the one son who didn't ask for much and gave everything. They never once said thank you. Not once. They just figured I'd always keep showing up. Keep paying. Keep pretending not to notice. But I noticed. I remembered the way they looked away when I got hurt. How Mom told her friends, "Oh, he's fine. He's still got one good arm." Like that made me enough. Like that made me usable. I could still hear my brothers laugh, calling me RoboCop every Thanksgiving, like I was some kind of joke they brought out for entertainment. And I remembered my dad once saying, "We're not gonna tiptoe around just because you had a rough year." A rough year. That's what he called the 10 years I spent trying to piece my life back together. That's the cycle right there. They pretend I don't count, but they always need something from me. They wanted the benefits without acknowledging the person behind them. The gifts without the giver. The help without the human. For a long time, I told myself maybe they just didn't realize how much I was doing. But that wasn't the truth. They knew. They counted on it. Which is exactly why the lake house announcement didn't shock me. It was just the final stamp of a long, unspoken agreement. And as I sat there that night, staring into a glass of whiskey, I made a choice. I wasn't going to keep giving, not my money, not my silence, not even my name. I was done being their silent partner. I wasn't the son coming home to make everything okay anymore. I was the son who came back to shut it all down. That morning, right after the lake house stunt, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't storm out. I made a list. Room by room, detail by detail. Not because I was being petty, because I was being precise. It wasn't revenge. It was record-keeping. It was awareness. Everything I'd bought, fixed, installed, or funded over the years, I was reclaiming it. By 9 o'clock, I was parked out front. My brother answered the door in gym shorts, sipping on some protein shake. He didn't say anything. Just stood there like someone who finally noticed the foundation beneath him was gone, and all the mess was starting to surface. I started with the obvious. The smart lock on the front door? Came off in under 5 minutes. The home theater system and that massive 65-inch OLED I gave Dad so he could have a true cinema feel? The mesh Wi-Fi I installed last year because Mom kept dropping from Zoom calls? Shut down. Gone, too. The smart lighting system, the hands-free kitchen faucet, the cloud-connected security system. All disabled. By lunchtime, the house didn't feel broken, it just felt strange. Hollow. Because everything that made it run smoothly, everything they took for granted, I had quietly maintained for years. I wasn't vengeful. I was methodical. I pulled the plug on remote access to the thermostat. The fridge screen turned into a mirror. The generator monitor stopped reporting. Then I moved to the accounts. I logged into the mortgage portal, took my name off as co-signer, and triggered a review. I already knew they wouldn't qualify. Not after I was the one who got them approved during the last refinancing. Next stop, phones. 5 active lines. All under my name. I initiated a transfer of ownership. Told the system if they didn't accept in 72 hours, the lines would cut off automatically. Streaming services? Every single one. Cancelled. Netflix. Food. HBO Max, Amazon Prime. Even the password manager we all used. Gone. Their Amazon deliveries hit a wall. Autofill passwords stopped working. The TV in the living room turned to static. Around 2 p.m., my brother finally spoke. "This is insane," he said. I didn't respond. Just unplugged the router and walked out the front door. Next, their business. My parents' company had been running on my firm's infrastructure for over a decade. I gave them cloud backups, secured their emails, maintained firewalls, licensed their software, free of charge. I logged into my company's admin dashboard and flagged their account as terminated. Professional. Final. Left a brief message right there on the screen. This system was provided at no cost for 11 years. As of today, it has been decommissioned. Thank you. That was the moment it hit them. How much of their world had been built on my quiet support. By 3:30, someone from the clinic's front desk messaged me in a panic. "We can't access anything. We're locked out. Please help." I didn't answer. I forwarded it to a colleague and told him to bill them emergency rates. No discounts. Then came the real sweep, the lake house. I never wanted the place. But I'd covered half its repairs. The new dock. The water filtration system. The guest cabin renovations. All of it funded from my accounts, just helping. I pulled the records. Highlighted every payment. Then I called my lawyer. He didn't flinch. "Are you looking to reclaim or recover?" he asked. "Both," I said. He started drafting the paperwork, quietly, professionally. No drama. Just facts. I headed back to the house one last time for the final round. The dining room table? $3,800. Bought by me. Loaded it up. The patio set, purchased on my card during what they called a family emergency. Into the truck it went. The espresso machine I gave them 2 Christmases ago, the one Mom used to say made her feel appreciated, carefully wrapped in towels. Packed it. At one point, my brother tried standing in the hallway to block me. "You're not taking the flooring," he said. I didn't argue. I just smiled. Walked right past him. Because I had the receipts. All of them. By nightfall, the house was still standing. Still beautiful. But it felt empty. Not because I wrecked it, but because everything I'd poured into it, every silent contribution, was now gone. Except for one thing. The box. An old wooden one tucked away in the back of the closet, the place they kept photo albums and forgotten bits of family history. I opened it. Inside were the cards I'd written over the years. Notes. A couple hospital bracelets. A dried corsage from my sister's high school dance. A medal from a time when I still had 2 hands. And right on top, folded neatly, was a drawing I made when I was 7. Stick figures all smiling. My family, I had written in crayon. They kept it. Even after all of it, they kept that. I stared at that old drawing for a long while. Then I gently closed the box and left it sitting right there on the dining table. It was the only thing I didn't take. Not because I wanted to hold on to memories. No, I wanted space. That night, I drove home and slept harder than I had in years. No phone calls woke me. No texts demanding answers. No guilt weighing me down. Just silence. And in that quiet, something clicked. I realized I hadn't broken the family. I'd simply stepped out of the machine that kept it running. They didn't call me the next morning. Or the day after. 4 days passed. The silence stretched out like a thick fog. But it wasn't peaceful, it was pressure. Like a pipe swelling inside, waiting to burst. And then it finally did. On day 5, at 8:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with a group message. From Mom, Dad, and my brother. "You're overreacting," it read. "This was a family decision. We thought you'd understand. This doesn't have to be permanent. Let's fix this. You're acting like a stranger." I didn't reply. An hour later, Mom sent me a separate message. "I'm ashamed you're trying to punish us instead of talking. This isn't you. You're not a monster." That was their tone. No apologies. No responsibility. Just panic and denial. They weren't sorry, they were scared. Because for the first time in forever, I'd pulled the plug. The safety net. The fixer. The fallback. By lunchtime, my voicemail was packed. Dad left 2 identical messages back to back. Just call me. Don't do anything stupid. What he meant by stupid was permanent. They knew I wasn't bluffing anymore. By evening, things got worse. Aunt Renee posted a vague status on Facebook. Some people will throw away blood over ego. Subtle. But everybody knew who she meant. Then came the real escalation, the smear campaign. It started with a message from my cousin Allie. "They're saying you're having a breakdown," she wrote, attaching a screenshot from the family chat I'd been kicked out of. My brother had said, "He's been acting differently lately. We need to give him space. He's not thinking clearly." Then Mom chimed in. "This is what happens when you bottle things up for years." He was always so distant. They weren't just fishing for sympathy. They were rewriting the story. I wasn't unraveling. I wasn't spiraling out of control. I wasn't setting boundaries. I was dangerous. And nobody bothered to ask me what was really going on. They just assumed the old narrative was still true, the quiet brother, the awkward one, the scapegoat. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I was the storm they never saw coming. That night, my phone rang from a blocked number. I almost didn't pick up. It was Melissa, my brother's girlfriend. Her voice was shaky. "They're trying to bury you," she said. She'd overheard a conversation. My parents had met, she said. Sat down and put together a timeline, trying to make me look unstable for years. They were spinning everything. The canceled wedding, the frozen streaming accounts, the business system shutdowns, as signs of mental breakdown, not calculated moves. Melissa said even the therapist they'd once used was being dragged into it. Mom had called her, asking if she'd noticed any signs of trouble. That's when I knew for sure they weren't trying to bring me back. They were out to discredit me, erase everything I'd done by painting me as unstable. Then the emails started showing up at work. 2 anonymous ones. Vague accusations, concerns about emotional changes, strange behaviors. I tracked the IPs. One came from the public library in my parents' town. The other from a home internet service provider. I didn't need more proof. They were desperate. And desperate people don't hide their tracks well. I didn't reply. Not to the emails. Not to the social posts. Not to the calls. I let my silence do the talking. Because I knew what was coming next, confrontation. Sure enough, Sunday afternoon, they showed up. Mom, Dad, and my brother, standing at my front door like they were dropping off a pie for Thanksgiving. They didn't ring the bell. Just waited, 3 actors standing silently, waiting for their cue. I let them stand there for 2 full minutes before opening the door. I didn't invite them in. Didn't offer a smile. Just said, "You've got 5 minutes." Mom burst into tears right away. Not grief, but exposure. She wasn't sorry. She was cornered. She launched into a monologue about family, misunderstandings, and how badly things had spiraled. Dad followed with his line, "You've always been intense, but this isn't you." My brother stayed silent, jaw clenched. I waited a moment, then said it. "You're not here because you care. You're here because the power's off, and you don't know how to live in the dark." Silence. Then I looked at Mom. "You let them say I was crazy." Looked at Dad. "You watched it happen." Looked at my brother. "And you started it." That's when my brother finally broke. "You're throwing your own family away. For what? Pride." I almost laughed. "No," I said. "I'm throwing you out, for survival." They weren't ready for this version of me. The one who didn't flinch. The one who didn't need their permission to be done. Mom tried one last time, "We're your family." I said it clearly for the first time. "No. You were. Now you're just people I used to pay for." Then I closed the door. They never knocked again. They didn't yell or scream. They just stood there, stunned and lost, realizing the whole system they'd built around me had crumbled. And now, they had no clue how to put it back together without me. What they didn't expect was that I'd go public. That was their last illusion, the idea that I'd stay silent. That even if I cut off all the money, the services, the support, I'd still shield their image. They thought I'd remain in the shadows. They mistook my silence for loyalty. But it wasn't loyalty, it was self-control. So I opened the vault. First, I posted a simple caption online. For those asking why I went quiet, here's what my silence was covering. I attached screenshots. The family group chat where mom called me unstable. My brother's message calling me a sunk cost. Cancelled invoices I'd paid. An email with defamation traced back to their network. No hashtags. No rants. Just facts. Within an hour, the post had over 300 shares. Friends, colleagues, even distant relatives. Then I uploaded the second file, a video from my own doorbell camera. There was mom standing in my driveway, dad right behind her, throwing bricks and swinging branches, screaming. The same people who said I was spiraling were now screaming themselves. "We gave you everything," they shouted. I blurred faces, not because I had to, but because I wanted the focus on truth, not revenge. Then came the final upload, a PDF titled Receipts. It had bank records showing payments I'd made for their mortgage, streaming services, weddings, tuition. Email confirmations with my signature, authorizing home upgrades, travel, business systems. Legal documents proving I'd removed myself from their debts. No edits. No spin. Just the raw truth. Then I closed my laptop. Didn't check for comments. Didn't wait for reactions. Because the truth wasn't for them. It was for the people they tried to fool. By evening, my inbox was flooded. Old friends, coworkers, a few cousins reached out. One message stood out, from my cousin Ellie. "You didn't destroy the family. You revealed it." Even more surprising, a note came from my uncle's dental clinic assistant. "So you were the one holding it all together? We had no idea. They always said you were just the IT guy." That hit hard. Because that was the family story all along. I was the broken one, the helper, the sad guy who needed a purpose. Now they knew I was the backbone. And when I walked away, everything fell apart. No drama. No revenge. Just balance restored. By the next day, mom had deactivated her social media accounts. Dad's email replied with an out-of-office message, indefinitely. My brother went silent online, deleted old posts, switched his profile to private. It wasn't shame, they were exposed. They couldn't spin their story anymore, not when the receipts were out in the open. And that's when the balance truly shifted. They didn't just lose a son, they lost the story they told about him. They asked to meet, one last time. No group texts. No pressure. Just a short email from Dad. "If you've got 10 minutes, we'd like to see you." No drama, just closure. It sounded rehearsed. Calculated. Polished to sound reasonable. Like someone had finally been hired to edit their apologies. I didn't reply. I just showed up. Same house. Same driveway. Same front door I'd walked away from months ago. My brother wasn't there, just my parents, waiting in the living room like this was some twisted family counseling session. Mom stood when she saw me, her eyes already glassy. Dad didn't move. "Thank you for coming," Mom said, like we were strangers closing a business deal. I said nothing. Just nodded once and sat across from them. The room was too clean. Too staged. The fireplace flickered even though it was July. On the coffee table, 2 mugs sat side by side, one labeled World's Best Son. Mom pushed the mug toward me like it was supposed to reset everything. I didn't touch it. Dad cleared his throat and began. "We've thought a lot about what happened, what we said, and we want to be clear. We didn't mean to make you feel unwanted." He spoke carefully, like he was tiptoeing around a legal line, not confessing, just doing damage control. Mom added, "You've always been so strong, so capable. We didn't realize how much pressure you were under." They didn't realize. That was the day's theme. Not "we ignored you." Not "we used you." Just "oops. We didn't notice." I let them talk. Let them list their regrets. Regrets about appearances. Regrets the family was broken. They spoke about therapy. About rebuilding trust. About starting fresh. They said every phrase, except the ones that mattered. "We were wrong. We were cruel. We treated you like a service, not a son." Finally, Dad said, "We miss you." Silence. Waiting. I stood up, calm and collected, and said, "You don't miss me. You miss the infrastructure. You miss the funding. You miss the version of me who paid, stayed silent, and let you pretend this was love. Mom gasped. Dad blinked like he'd been slapped. I didn't stop. You don't miss me. You miss what I gave. The free labor, the silent compliance, the automatic yes. I turned to Mom. You let them lie about me. You let them say I was unstable. And when I stayed quiet, you called it peace. But it wasn't peace. It was me surviving you. Then I faced Dad. You taught me loyalty means obedience. That love is earned through sacrifice. But it wasn't love. It was utility. They tried to interrupt. I kept going. You don't get to ask for grace after decades of casual cruelty. You don't get to pretend this was a misunderstanding. It was a transaction. And I finally canceled the subscription. Mom broke down crying, loud, heaving sobs like she was begging for forgiveness. I stayed still. She whispered, but we're still your parents. Is it? You were. And you spent that title like a credit card with no limit. Now it's maxed out. And you're the ones who defaulted. Dad stood up. He looked smaller than I remembered, older, deflated. His voice cracked. So that's it? You're done. I met his eyes. No. I was done the night you gave my seat away for hardwood discounts. This is just me turning off the lights. They had nothing left to say. I didn't wait for a goodbye. I walked past the framed photos they never updated. Past the fake fire burning for show. Past the world's best son, mug left untouched on the table. I closed the door behind me, not slammed, just clicked softly. A chapter ended. That night, Mom sent one last message. You'll regret this someday. Family is forever. I replied with the only truth they never expected. No. Family is earned. And you returned it broken. Then I blocked her number and finally slept. No guilt. No noise. No weight on my chest. Because I didn't just say no to them, I said yes to myself for the first time in 20 years. And that, at last, was enough.